Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Major General Greg Porter, and I have the privilege to serve as your Adjutant General. I thought I'd take a few moments this morning. It probably takes about an hour for the team and I to kind of run you through what an update of the Wyoming Military Department, what we've got going. This is being pushed out this morning on Facebook Live, so welcome to everybody that got up on a Sunday morning and joined us. But if you don't get a chance to see it live, we'll record this and it'll be posted up on our Wyoming Military Department site for those of you who can see it later. Questions, there's an opportunity to ask questions here. Certainly you can send them in while the team is briefing. We'll address those at the end when we get to the discussion and question portion of that. Really pretty much straightforward on how I do the updates like I've done in the past. I've really just taken those topics out of my green book that that I'm concentrating on and what I think is important for the military department, and I'll run through those and I'll show you those in a minute. And then I'm going to turn it over to our ATAG on the air side, Colonel Paul Lyman. He's got his pieces he wants to brief you on, then General Nesvik, then General Alkire. We'll have the two SELs sprinkled in through there, and then at the end I want to get an opportunity for anybody who has any questions out there to ask them as we go forward. I always like to start these whenever I'm talking with the team about what our mission is, and if maybe we could we show the first slide on what mission. You know, you continue to hear me talk all about the sword and shield and how important that is for our state and nation, and what we do and what you do specifically as members of the National Guard and our Wyoming Military Department to execute this mission. And I talk a lot about lethality. And responsiveness and partnerships as we think about this mission. But I want you to kind of take a look. I wanted to direct your attention to a couple of other pieces of this mission statement as we talk about it. And that one is enabling competition in the battle space. We don't talk about that as much. I don't talk about that as much as it should be talked about, because frankly, that's what's happening most of the time at levels below war, is competition. And we would be foolish to forget the competition is going on out there with our adversaries every day, you know, most notably in the cyber realm. But we know that state actors are out there trying to influence our elections and our peaceful transition of power. We know that, that folks are doing things in other countries below the level of war that are designed to disrupt and disturb and compete against the United States. So this enabling competition in the battle space is an important piece of our mission that I want to start to focus a little bit more on, and I wanted to really talk to you as we start doing that, because there's a piece of that for us in enabling competition, and most of that is the missions that you're doing when we deploy overseas, when we deploy in support of the president, but also just the fact that you're training and getting ready and are prepared and can go do those missions. That causes a calculation in our adversaries' eyes. That causes them to reconsider what and how they do things. And all that's dependent on how well we do that piece. And so you'll hear me a lot talk about how being professional and our warrior culture and going above the minimum standard, because that is the competition piece. That's how we're competing against the bad guys out there when we engage in that conflict below the level of war. That is competition. Second part of that is what we're seeing, you know, certainly about saving lives and alleviating suffering. You know, MAFS has been, and I don't want to take too much of Paul's thunder, but MAFS has been out in California trying to help those folks who are going through a horrendous time right now. We've got a UH-60 over there, and it's important as our nation for us to help one another, I think, and this is just another part of that, and we do this so well, you know, particularly the air in terms of hurricane support, which I don't think we're out of the woods completely yet this year. As you know, Sally's on the way to landfall, and I think that won't be the last one. And certainly the California wildfires and what's going on there, it's important for us as a force, I think, to be able to reach out and help our brothers and sisters. We'd certainly want their assistance if we need it as we go forward. So. I just want to tell you all appreciate all of what you're doing in that area, and again how important that is to the National Guard and our residents and citizens. All right, let's go to the quick agenda if we could. Well, these are the things that I'll talk about. It'll come no great surprise to you. I'm going to talk strength first. I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19 and where our head's at there. I want to give you a brief discussion about the state budget. It's important to us. I can't talk a little bit about a whole bunch about it yet because the governor hasn't approved many of much of the way ahead. But I want to talk to you about, give you an update on skilled nursing, where we are with the National Cemetery. Talk about the Camp Guernsey land swap. Try to give a little peek, at least until the first quarter of next year in TY21, and at least I think where our heads need to be at. Talk about the governor's ball, and then really finish up with a little bit of discussion about culture, inclusion, what that means to us as a sword and shield. First off, on strength, we've had some successes in strength this year. There is a lot of positive momentum going on in strength. On the air side, we're probably going to be at about a +10 from where we began the year out. And that's a little bit short of the goal that we had met, and largely that's due to the retention side of the house. The accessions piece, the team has been working their tails off, and I want to tell them and congratulate them. We'll probably assess more folks into the Air Guard this year than we've ever done, upwards close to 185, I think was the last count. The retention piece is what really sort of brought us down. We just miscalculated. We just miscalculated on what that retention was going to look like. And I think the leadership team now is sort of recalibrated, and we're focusing on that area on retention. But I suspect by the end of the year, we'll be just a little bit short of what we'd set out to do. But I don't want to, I want to tell them, hey, congratulations on getting more airmen into our formations than we've ever done before. Not an easy feat. It took a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of focus from leaders and our recruiting folks on the air side to get that done. That is to say, we still got work to do, and that's what our focus is going to continue to be as we roll into 21. Strength continues to be the priority, and we'll continue to put resources, time, effort, and energy to assure that we get there. On the Army side, despite General Nesvik's leadership, they really did quite well on that. They're going to be over 100%, probably about +38 from where they started at the where they'll end. They started at 1537, and then they're going to end up probably at 1574. They're about 1588 at the moment. So again, despite all the things that were going on in COVID out there, and I'll tell you, other states were not as fortunate as the Wyoming Army and Air Guard. We really excelled in that COVID environment in the recruiting side, and so it just, again, what a great example of leadership and focus that took. I'm a little concerned. The strength mission for the Army next year is 1,600. That's just a little bit over our force structure allowance. That's where our focus will be. We traditionally have a higher attrition rate after big mobilizations in the Army. Pushed out about a third of their force structure last year. So just like it is on the air side, on the Army side, we'll be very focused on retention this next year as we go forward. I'll let General Nesvik talk a little bit about some force structure changes and his view on the strength side, but really there is a lot of positive energy right now in the military department on the strength piece, and folks are starting to really embrace where we need to go with that strength culture. I was talking to Colonel Shenefelt and Colonel Monroe this morning. There's a lot of passion and energy going on with those two when they think about strength and they talk about that, and that's tremendous to see. And I think we just need to keep supporting everybody as we do that. For our soldiers and airmen out there, keep bringing in the leads. That's our best recruiters. Thank you. Is you. So please don't stop bringing in folks. If we think this is a worthwhile organization, and I certainly do, invite your friends to become a part of it. That's all I have on strength. We talked COVID-19. Obviously, COVID-19 has been the biggest probably issue that we've had over these past 8 months, and it's affected everybody, to greater and lesser degrees. I tell you, the key task that we had in the Wyoming Military Department was to protect the force, and you've done an outstanding job. We've had 22 military department folks that have been infected. None of them seriously so, at least we don't think so yet. There's always, complications that come down the line. I think we had 19 Army, 3 Air, and we did have about 5 dependents that were also affected. But none of those folks were contracted COVID from doing drill or in the workplace here in doing our business. And that is, once again, a tribute to you leaders and being disciplined and enforcing hand washing, masking, and staying 6 feet apart. And I mean, not a single one that we can attribute to that. So I think that's going to continue to be important for us as we go forward. So far, we haven't seen any spikes from us coming back to drill. We haven't seen the spike of folks when we started school again. We probably got another week on that to see where that really tells us. But so far, the team is doing a great job in protecting ourselves so that we can go do these missions. Because I tell you, the missions really haven't stopped. I mean, we're still deploying folks. Just this week, we had folks going out the door on the air side to continue to do missions. And now the school system's starting to, we're shipping again. We're starting to send folks to schools. It's starting to get, we've adjusted to this new normal of COVID, and that's where it's gone. Force protection is still going to be a key for us as we go in. You know, they think the flu season is going to be pretty well dampened down this year because of all we're doing on the COVID piece. But there is some strong concern that COVID's going to start to ramp up again as we start getting closer together, as people start maybe getting a little lax, that COVID will start to come up again. So we got to be aware of that. So I just charge you as leaders, soldiers, and airmen to keep after it. It's a pain to wear masks all the time, but it's not fatal to us, and we can do our business being masked up and support our state and nation as we need to going forward on COVID. State budget. So I think most of you know that 96% of our funding is from the federal government. We got 4% that comes from the state. That works out about $8 million a year, $16 million a biennium. Doesn't sound like much when compared to the $110 million or so that we're getting from the feds, but I tell you, it's critical to what we do, particularly in armory maintenance. That's the deal that the state makes with the federal government when they have a guard. Is you got to maintain the state, you got to maintain the armories. That also affects our veteran services, our cemetery, our museums, all of our state employees, of which we have over 200 of them. So that small part of our budget has a big effect in how we prepare and get ready as a military department going forward, and it's going to have some significant cuts to it. The governor had sort of a three-step process as he's going through right now. The first step one, was really to try to get as much money from this last biennium as he could and revert it. He hoped to get about a 10% savings on that. They're still working through that. Step two was to ask each agency to do 10%, to look at a 10% cut. At the same time, he also asked each of the senior folks in the organizations to take a furlough day. So myself and 4 or 5 other, 6, I think we got 7 in the military department, take a furlough day every month, which means it's a non-paid day. You can't get paid for that day. To try to help with that. We'll do that all the way through the end of January going forward. Step 3 is another 10% set of cuts. I've already submitted to the governor the step 2 cuts, what I think they are. I have not been, he's not definitely said, I'm going to take these cuts. We do have to submit the step 3 cuts here on the 15th, and again, I think the governor is hoping that we don't have to get to that point, but I will tell you it's significant. It affects the way that we train on state active duty. It affects the way we maintain our armories and readiness centers. It's going to have an effect, and I don't see us coming out of that for at least several years. So it's going to be a squeeze on us for a while as we go forward. So as we sort of roll through that, I'll be as transparent as I can with you on how those cuts affect us and what they do for us. But just suffice it to say, it's going to affect people. It's going to affect programs as we go forward. Skilled nursing facility in the Cheyenne National Cemetery. Some good news stories for us. Skilled nursing facility is something that the Veterans Commission and the Wyoming Military Department have been working on for a little over a decade. And what that is we're the only state in the nation that does not have a skilled nursing facility for its veterans. And that's changed now because of Governor Gordon's leadership and the leadership of the legislature and the Vets Commission this past year. We got that bill passed to establish a skilled nursing facility. It's 4 cottages, about 32 folks that we're going to be able to take care of, and it's going up in Buffalo, Wyoming, near the Soldiers and Sailors Home, and broke ground just this last July 15th to get that going. So substantial completion will be done about May of 22, but we're going to have a place in Wyoming for our veterans to receive the care that they deserve for the sacrifices they made. So that's a great thing. National Cemetery, coming over here in Cheyenne. It's out to the west of us here, over there towards the University of Wyoming agricultural land. It's going to be near that location. It's going to be ready to go. We're going to do the groundbreaking in the first part of October, and we'll have a national cemetery here in Cheyenne, Wyoming, for folks that are veterans to be interred when their time comes. So another, again, a great effort by the Veterans Commission getting that national cemetery established. So that'll be good. We hope to have Secretary Wilkie, the Director of Veterans Affairs, out here from D.C. for that event, and we'll get everybody out invited. Camp Guernsey land swap. Very quickly, Camp Guernsey is all state land, and it's checkerboarded in the north training area and the south training area with what they call school trust lands. And that makes it very difficult for us in the military because we have to, in order to be able to shoot or maneuver on it, we have to be able to control that area. And a grazing lease, which we've had previously, doesn't give us that kind of control. That just allows folks to graze. So we've been working real hard this last year to try to get all this school trust land, still state land, moved down to the south part of the area and turned over to the Wyoming Military Department. And so that's been the plan. We're going to swap all those school trust lands and we're going to move them to the South Training Range at that most southern border and basically turn it back over to the state of Wyoming. And then those other lands become under the control of the Military Department. So it'll be much easier for us to control access and entrance to it, and we will meet the regulations in our ability to maneuver and shoot over the top of it. So that's a long process, but I think we should get it done by probably spring of 21, get it all finished up. Let me talk really quickly on TY21, where I think things are going. I think everybody probably can, we're tracking a continuing resolution authority. The CRA is going to come in, and it's probably going to go through December is what we're suspecting. We're getting pretty good as a force, unfortunately, of operating in a CR. I mean, we've been doing it. It's been a rare event that we don't do it, and we're gonna go through that this year. I think we're going to see some budget cuts. Certainly, you've seen General Brown, the new the new Chief of Staff of the Air Force, starting talking about the Air Force that really we've got to be able to innovate or we lose. We got to move on down the road, and there's going to have to make some hard choices on the air side about which way they go. Same on the Army side. Army's been pouring a lot of money into modernization, and I think there's a real fear that there's just not going to be enough money to modernize like everybody thinks that we need to. So I think going forward in the next, certainly this next year, the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be adjusting to less resources. And we've gone through that, we've gone through that before. And I don't know that it'll hit us as bad this next year, but obviously depending on the administration that in the elections that happen in November, we could see some changes in the following years for sure. And we will, I think no matter which administration gets in, I think everybody understands the amount of money the nation spent in COVID and the amount of money we've spent in the war, that something's going to have to change. And so I think it's going to fall to the military again to deal with those cuts as we go forward. If I look at TY21, and I'll let the commanders here really talk a little bit more about that, but I tell you, I think it's going to be a lot like we're going to continue to train like we've done in the past, and we're going to kind of adjust to this new normal of being masked up and continuing to go through, at least until a vaccine is done. And I can tell you, I think even with a vaccine, it's probably a year before we get, we adjust to those things that do to us too. So I think next year is going to look a lot like what we've been doing these past couple of months. We'll continue to train hard, we'll continue to deploy, we'll continue to do those things, but it's going to be under this COVID restrictions, I think, as we go forward. And then we'll start taking a look and to see what our resources look like. But I think it's incumbent to all of us to start, as leaders, to start thinking about how we train more effectively and efficiently and focused, because I just don't get the sense that we're going to have the resources we've had the last several years. Governor's Ball, really quickly, an update on the Governor's Ball. We pushed it. It was supposed to go here in November. We're going to push that to April to see if we can't get out a little bit of the COVID problems that we've been having. Right now, it's scheduled for April 10th. It's right after the Wyoming National Guard's 151st birthday. So the focus is going to be, we're going to have a little birthday party if we can pull this off. Still plans to be at Little America, and we'll celebrate the Wyoming National Guard's birthday. We didn't get to do the 150th because of COVID, so we're going to do 151 and get that taken care of. So we'll get that piece done. Really quick before I get to. I'll finish up here with the sword and shield, and to talk a little bit about culture, and then I'll turn it over to Colonel Lyman as we go forward. And I'll just say this, there's a lot of discussion going on in our country right now about what diversity is, what inclusion means, and how we as a force deal with those things. I will tell you, in the conversations that I get to have with members of our force, by and large, military department's in a pretty good place. There are definitely people and things that we can do better and get after the inclusion piece, but by and large, people are in a pretty good place about it as I talk to them. I think they understand that the conversation is important, and I'll tell you, I think that's where the benefit is. I was talking to Colonel Chavez yesterday, and she pointed out that every time she has a conversation with somebody, she learns a little bit more about their perspective and where they come from. And I would just tell you, I would encourage you as your adjutant general to have the same conversations. Don't shy away from discussions about race, sex, religion, the perspectives that it brings to our soldiers and airmen. That conversation is always good. I tell you, I have one. Every time I have one, I come away with it just a little bit different perspective and a little bit more knowledgeable about how people think about it and see it. Captain Brazil reminds me often that, what we see the 2 days that we get our soldiers and airmen a month is really a lot different than a lot of people's reality the other 28 days. And I didn't really have much appreciation for that because I see us in this all the time. But what people deal with outside of this can sometimes be vastly different. And I guess I would encourage you, what you experience out there in the civilian world, what you experience at your school and your job, and if it's not quite what we think is, what the standards we hold as a military and a military department, have those discussions. Bring those to the forefront, those issues that you have, so that we can all have a better understanding and idea of what's going on out there in our world and what our soldiers and our airmen see every day that maybe we don't get a chance to see every day. We talk, it's always a touchy subject, and I'm always interested in talking about sword and shield. It doesn't take too much for me to get there. I tell you, it's important for us, now I think more than ever, as guardsmen and guardswomen, to understand that we have that mission, that we have a greater purpose in life, and that is to protect our Constitution and protect the residents of our state. And that is a great thing to hold on to. And it is so important, I think, for us to cherish that, because the type of people that you are is incredible. You're just a different breed of cat, and I tell you that before. The sacrifices you make, the standards that you have are just different than many of our folks. And what you're willing to do to protect your families and your country is amazing. And I think every time you get a chance to celebrate that and talk with one another about it is a good thing to do. The culture that's the culture that I think we want in this military department. We want to be professional. We want to be lethal. We want to be very good at our jobs. And we also we want to treat each other with dignity and respect. And I see that so much, and we want to continue to hold that standard for ourselves. So I'd be more than happy to have continue that discussion, but I've been talking for about 25 minutes now, which is about 5 minutes longer than I wanted to. So let me see if there's any real quick questions before I turn it over here in the audience, and then If not, I'll turn it over to Colonel Lyman. Anybody got anything for me? All right, I wowed you that much. All right, sounds good. Okay, Colonel Lyman, I turn to you. Mm-hmm.
Test. Okay, it's on. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Wyoming Military Department, Wyoming Air Guard. You know, the last time we did this, we just talked into a camera, so it was a little awkward. So it's really nice to see some actual faces that I can talk to this morning and kind of interact with as we go through our discussion. Before I jump into my topics, and there you see them on the slide, what we're looking at, I do want to just take a moment to talk about the sword and the shield and really kind of reflect on what we've done as a Guard over the last 6 months and over the last year. And it's kind of an operational summary. But never have we been more needed and more used for our state and nation than we have right now. I just repeat that. Never has this unit done more for our state and our nation over the past year than ever before. And we're doing it in the middle of a 100-year pandemic. So my eternal gratitude, thanks to all the airmen, and that's the airmen that are out there doing it, and that's the airmen that are getting these other airmen out the door, and the support, and the families, and the family readiness, and our DPHs, and everyone else. So it's been just a phenomenal effort. And I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit. I know I've said it in the past, but for the SHIELD and our federal mission, we just are completing a huge ops and maintenance deployment to the CENTCOM AOR, which was very successful. On top of that, we have an Agile Combat Support. So that's our mission support group. And those are really lengthy deployments, not for the Army folks in the room, but for our air folks. Those deployments typically last 6 months, and on our operations side, they last about 3 months. So we had our Ops Maintenance, Civil Engineering, Comm, Force Support Squadron, Security Forces Squadron, Air Medical Evacuation Squadron, Air Traffic Control Squadron. I know there's onesie-twosies, and I'm probably leaving somebody out. And right now, we are, in the next couple weeks, we are deploying more, and we have a lot, and I mean a lot, deployed over there. For those airmen that are watching, thank you for what you're doing. You're doing great work as the shield of our nation. I know you're executing the mission for the CENTCOM and our commanders over there, and we wish you and we pray for you, and we want you all to get home safely, so we can't wait for that day until we get home safely. But I do want to touch on that COVID-19 thing. So, okay, we have, because of the situation, I'll give you a specific example. So in our Civil Engineering Squadron, and this is how we do it, you know, typically we don't do this in the Air Force. You guys might do it in the Army side. But on the Air Force side, the Civil Engineering Squadron, we had people that literally said goodbye to their families, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Got on the bus, you know, everyone's crying, they go away, and then they got to make the phone call and come back because of what's happening with COVID-19. And it happened again and again and again. So for those families, those deployers, and we had other deployers that got halfway there, got quarantined, got all the way there, got quarantined. Some of them got quarantined before they could come back. So it's just a lot of thrash on our airmen, and that's not what we like to do, but it was just required. And for those support people, I'm telling you, the tip vids would come out. We had people working all night, overnight, from our Force Support Squadron, our LRS, our legal team, our medical, everybody. So you've done a phenomenal job making that mission work. So my hat's off to you, and it's just a tremendous job. And then really quickly on the SHIELD, our QRF, Quick Reaction Force, we did deploy to Casper for some civil unrest. Thankfully, they weren't used, but we had some airmen out there doing that. We did have some planners that helped with the governor in the state of Wyoming and fell in under General Alkire. And did some work there. I know they did a lot of great work. And then our Air Medical Evacuation Squadron, they did deploy to Travis Air Force Base to help with the COVID-19. And again, with our MAFS unit, sir, you touched on it, but wherever he is, he disappeared. As soon as I start talking, he's back there already giving me the signs. So for our MAFS unit, we had a request for assistance. So if you haven't got on Facebook or on social media, go out there, take a look. We've had 105 drops. You know, it's the worst fire season ever in California history. It's literally burning up. We got a lot of stuff happening all over the West. They did 105 drops. There's an amazing drop on social media where you see one of our tails, the fires coming down the canyon, you've got fire trucks that are on the road, and our guys and gals do a drop, and they drop the slurry right between the fire and the fire truck. So it's just an awesome sight. So if you haven't seen it, go take a look at that. So with that, there's now another request for assistance. So we anticipate another airtail and more crews fighting fires here in California or wherever we're needed. So we're anticipating that here in the future. So that's really sword in the shield. Okay, now I'm going to jump into my topics. Strength and retention. Strength is our number one priority, and the boss already hit on it. So I'll just quickly talk. 20 closeout, yes, 185. Unbelievable job for our recruiters and mission support group and everyone to hit that mark. That's probably the highest we've had in the last 20 years. But we did miss the mark, 150 on retention. So there's several factors for that, but we're kind of digging in. We're doing more analysis, and we think this next year we got it right, and we're going to monitor that a little bit more closely. We're trying to get to 1291. That's 95%. 167 in and about 134 out. Now, I've had meetings with Colonel Dibert and all our group commanders and our squadron commanders, so we are talking strength. I need everyone in this organization to talk strength. We're getting advertisements out there. We want to keep people in the unit, but just as importantly, if you're thinking about leaving, we really would like you to stay. So we're going to keep after that, and we're going to get to that 95% by the end of this year. Readiness. On the readiness piece, we are really doing fairly well considering what's happening with readiness. And thanks to Colonel Walras, he's in the audience here, but his team kind of jumped on it quickly when we did the COVID-19, so we did a couple virtual drills. That really helped us. And then when it comes to a point in time when you just can't drill virtually, you have to see each other and you have to touch equipment and you have to do those other things. So now we're doing that with social distancing, but our readiness still remains strong. COVID-19, sir, you said how many on the air side? 3, or is it 7? 3 confirmed cases. And really that has a lot. We had a couple scares, but we are very proactive, and we're going to continue to be that way. Listen to the full-time staff and their team. Listen to the current guidance that we have out. If you can social distance. If you can't, wear your mask. If you think you're sick, don't come to work. If you've been exposed, get tested. And you guys are all doing that, and it shows because we only had the 3 confirmed cases. But keep up the good work, because that will, like the boss said, we're going to continue on in this environment for a while. Command and control group. So we were out there this morning. So on the 1st of September, we stood up the 253rd Command and Control Group. We had the ceremony this morning, and that effectively, now we have 3 squadrons out there in 1 group. And that's really going to help, and I didn't touch on the Command and Control Squadron when I talked about what we were doing, but I'll tell you, their secret mission, they do great work each and every day, but they were, quite frankly, severely understaffed. And this getting it to a group is going to vastly help for them to accomplish their mission. And really the next step now is to get a manpower study and get that manpower right so we can really do that mission correctly and effectively. But hats off to them. JDEC. What is the JDEC? What does it stand for? And the boss kind of already touched on it. So I am the JDEC chairman. JDEC stands for Joint Diversity Executive Council. It's been stood up for a while. So part of the thing that the boss said, we think the culture here is pretty good on diversity and inclusion, and that's exactly what the JDEC does. So we look at 3 things. We look at historical data on surveys. So, and I will tell you right now, we're getting ready to push out a survey, but administratively, there's just a few challenges, so that might get delayed a month. We try to get it out by October, but it may be November, December, January. But we're working on those questions, that historical data, how we're doing, and what we are doing for diversity and inclusion. So we look at that historical data, and all this information we funnel up to the boss, and we take a look at what's happening in the environment, and we try to advise the commanders on how we are. So we look at the surveys. We look at also demographic data, and we're getting into a deep dive on, basically, how do we look as an organization, and where do we want to go? And this is something new. We're going to take a snapshot, and it'll be just like the survey data. It'll be a snapshot over time. How representative are we of our population when people come into the force, midpoint in the force, and when they leave the force? And that's like command, NCOs, senior NCOs, and the like. And the final thing we look at is the complaint resolution section. So we look at the IG, the MEO, the EEO. They all funnel in the SEAM, and they all funnel it in, and they talk about, we track the amount of complaints we have and if they get resolved or not. So the Joint Diversity Council, that's where we stand, that's where we're going. So really the next step on it, you'll look at the survey that will come out, and it's going to be an Army air-wide survey. C-130J / C-130 modernization. I just want to touch briefly on it. So right now, the decision, Air Force-wide, if you don't know, we made the final cut of 8 for the final 3. There's 3 squadrons of C-130Js that are available. We made the final cut of 8. Civil engineering, Colonel Walrath and his team, they put a great presentation. NGB came out and did a virtual site survey. We think we did well, but we don't know. The announcement has been delayed a little bit, and the Secretary of Air Force told the Director of the Air National Guard, don't make an announcement yet, but the Secretary of the Air Force says they're going to make an announcement by the end of September, so we're waiting for that. And really, there's a lot of speculation, but that's literally all we know. At the senior level, I know General Porter's calling other tags. We're all trying to figure stuff out, but we just don't know any more than that. And I just want to tell everyone out there that if we do get J models, we've already had discussions. We've already been discussing with HRO, other agencies. I do want to reach out to the navigators and the flight engineers. For the Army people that don't know, they would lose their position on that platform. So really, it's about protecting full-time and part-time jobs, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure everyone is still gainfully employed, and we have a smart plan, and it'll be a long thought-out plan if that happens, if we get J's. At the same, it's a simultaneous strategy. At the same time, with the C-130 modernization, our tail number, 92, 15, 35. So every plane has a different tail number. We have 8 tails, and 1535 now has the new engines on it, the 3.5 engines. It has new propellers, 8-bladed propellers, new electronic valve control housing, and it is the first plane, so it'll be the first Iron Herc here on the planet. So it's the first one to go in to get the all-glass cockpit, so that's pretty cool. So we are literally on the front of modernization. So that we are tracking that at the same time, and we are in great position if we need to modernize. CY21, I just want to touch really briefly on what we have going on and what we're going to be focused on. So deployments, we're going to finish up our Agile Combat Support in the first part of the year. Colonel Dybert and his team with Colonel Michelow, they're already planning on some exercises. We could go into Southern Strike or other sea burning exercise. We're going to be focused on MAFs. We have MAF training coming up in May. July, as always, hopefully we'll have a Frontier Days. By that time, we'll be supporting Frontier Days, and in September, we're planning on an open house. But as far as what we're really focused on for calendar year 21 is going to be that reconstitution, because we've had so many people out, really focusing on that readiness piece, but primarily it's the strength. So we're going to really hit strength hard. A couple last things I want to touch on, and I'm going to hand over for just a brief moment to Chief Moore to talk fitness, but like the boss said, we think the budget's going to be very tight for FY21, CY21. So tight budget, so we'll continue to do things smartly. And I just want to do a shout out. I know we just came up on the air side with a tape. September is Suicide Awareness Month and Prevention Month. And I know, I've seen on a civilian side where 1 in 10, 1 in 12 young people are severely depressed, and now since COVID, it's like 1 in 4. So we're not only having our airmen, in a severe stressed mental state, we have our, family members, our siblings, our kids. So pay attention to it, pay attention to each other. We have resources out there. We're pushing it out on the air side. So if you're struggling, if you know somebody's struggling, get them the help they need, because we're all in this together. And with that, I'm going to turn it over, unless there's any questions to, and I think we'll take questions at the end, but Chief Moore is going to quickly talk about fitness.
All right, real quick on fitness testing. I'm sure there's rumors, Facebook things going out. There is discussions about moving the fitness test again, requirements out to March. Nothing official yet. So everybody is preparing for that to start back up in October. We can't stop preparing until we get official word. Along that note, if this test and when these tests keep getting pushed, it is your responsibility to stay fit. TOs, as supervisors, please make sure your airmen understand that. Please make sure that fitness does remain an important part of your military career. And that goes into mental health situations. So if you're staying fit, you're taking care of business, chances are you're staying focused on your personal health, which does get into mental health. But please, NCOs, supervisors out there, please check on your airmen, make sure they're doing all right, make sure they're taking care of themselves. This can be a difficult time. This has been a difficult time for a lot of folks. I do appreciate all the hard work that's been going on. Everybody's done great. And please, reach out if you need help. Please stay focused on what we have to get done. And just like Colonel Lyman said, we're busy. We're staying focused. Just let's not get lost in the cracks there. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions. General Nesvik. Kept it short, just like promised.
All right, hey, good morning. Thanks for those of you that are able to join us here this morning. I've got a few things, and I'm going to reiterate some of the things that the TAG talked about, and also Colonel Lyman. So first of all, you know what, this is, in my view, a significant, when we talk about strength and what the Army Guard has achieved this year, this is a significant event. This is a big deal. We haven't been able to exceed our end strength, our authorized strength, in over a decade. And right now, today, we have exceeded our authorized strength for this year. We're just barely over 100%. But again, that's a big deal. That's, you know, we've made strength a priority for a lot of years. It's always been, you know, we have to have bodies in order to go out and do our mission. And so we've focused on this thing in the past, and we've made some changes this year that I think have made a difference. And I think, first of all, you know, recruiting and retention exceeded their own projections of what they thought they could possibly do this year with how many people they assessed into the Guard. And I believe that it was a culmination of significant, you know, a change in focus, a change in their methods, and a change in how many people they allocated to that job. And bottom line is leadership matters. And they, you know, Colonel Pazewski and the crew did an outstanding job of changing the trajectory with the session. Secondly, like I said, it's a team effort, and retention is the other side of this equation. And we did a better job of retaining soldiers than we have in the past as well. And that, you know, that certainly falls on, and that's the responsibility of commanders and all of the soldiers across all the formations across the state. This, you know, we're going to continue to have to focus on strength in the future, but we're starting at a better point. When we go in October 1st this year, we're going to be in a better position than we were last year. We're going to be in a position where it's not going to be such a steep climb. It's going to be more, it's going to be a shallow climb and sustain the progress and the successes that we've already achieved. As the TAG indicated, we're projecting at the end of the month no less than 1,574 soldiers, might be a few more than that. We've got some pending discharges right now that we just don't know exactly when they're going to hit the system. That's why we know we're going to lose a few from where we are today. But really, my hat's off to the entire force on and doing a really good job with doing something that, again, we haven't been able to do in over a decade. Everything we do, all of our readiness metrics, our ability to go do our state and federal missions lies squarely on and is based in our ability to have soldiers in all of our slots. I want to talk a little bit about readiness. So, you know, one of the things I actually have concerns with COVID and how the force is focused on readiness. One of the things that, you know, when you face a threat, whatever's kind of kicking your butt that day is where your focus goes. And certainly for the last 6 months, our focus has been on COVID. But you know, I've stressed to the commanders, and now I stress to all of you, that doesn't mean those other threats have gone away. We still have folks, very bad folks, that want nothing more than to harm our way of life and to dominate and perform. The TAG talked about competition. There are actors out there that want to outcompete and overperform the United States of America, and we can't forget that. Those actors that were there before COVID are still there, and don't think they're not watching how we react as a country, how we react as a military. We still have the same job, and that is to protect our nation against those bad actors, and they haven't gone away. So my ask is that while we've got to train, and while we've got to make ourselves ready during a time when the conditions are a little different. I'm looking at a room full of folks wearing a mask right now. That's the task at hand, and it's time to overcome and adapt to operating in a new environment. Our mission remains the same. We still have to be able to train and overcome any adversary that we may face. We still have to train to be able to take on any mission that our state and nation may give us. I'm concerned about things like medical readiness. I'm concerned about physical fitness. You know, it's interesting if you're not, you know, we have our force generally is a pretty healthy force that has high levels of physical fitness. In the Army Guard, we had achieved the highest level of physical fitness that we had in, again, probably over a decade, a long time since we were over 90% pass rate, and then COVID came. We're a pretty healthy force and we're pretty fit, but sometimes when you're not testing it, you lose focus, and we're not testing it right now. And my ask is, you know, it's incumbent upon the leaders of our organization, it's incumbent upon the soldiers and the NCOs of our organization to not allow the fact that we're not testing our abilities to deviate from the need for us to continue to be physically fit. We have to continue to do that. There will come a day again when we are testing it, but in the meantime, we don't want to lose ground here. We've gained some ground that's been hard ground to plow, and we're there, so let's maintain that. You know, I still challenge the commanders and all of our NCOs across the state to, as we look at both readiness and our strength over this next year, to focus on three things: enforcing standards, continuing to demand, plan, facilitate, resource tough, realistic training. That's a need to accomplish a mission. It's also a need to keep our folks wanting to come back to drill, wanting to continue to serve in a great organization. Tough, realistic training is critical. And then lastly is maintaining those strong relationships with our communities. Our communities need to know what we do. They're very proud of us, and we need to continue to nurture those relationships we have with our communities and support them. As far as COVID, I don't have a lot more to say about it. I'll just tell you that, you know what, this is a new challenge, and we are fully capable of meeting this challenge and continue to do what we need to do. Remember, everybody's watching, and we can actually, like a lot of other things, you know, we can have a leadership role here and show people what right looks like. So we've had a couple of opportunities in the Army Guard to look at force structure. And these opportunities don't come along very often. You know, I'm 30-plus year career here with the Army Guard, and I can count on one hand, I think, the number of times that we've had opportunities to recock or to modernize and update the way that our force structure looks in the state. Well, we've had a new opportunity, and we back in June, National Guard Bureau reached out and said, hey, look, Tags, you've got a short timeline here. If you see some opportunities that will benefit your state, where you could change, divest of, or gain force structure that's in the best interest of your unit, your state, the Guard, please let us know. We took a hard look at that. We knew that there were other units out there or other states out there that had interest in divesting of certain types of units, and they had interest in some of the assets and capacity that we have and capability. The idea that ended up coming out of it for Wyoming was an opportunity to trade our 133rd Engineer Company for an infantry company. And the reason that's a benefit for Wyoming is we know we can recruit infantry. We're at 130, 140% of authorized strength in our infantry company. If we take on a new infantry company, especially the right configured infantry company that's a heavy weapons company with a smaller MTO, less soldiers in the unit, we can actually bring that unit into the state and the next day be at 75% strength in that unit. One of the concerns we had, though, with this, and this was part of the negotiation, was we really didn't want to lose all of our engineer capacity, really focused on, state missions. And so when we talked with Alaska as eventually who we ended up making this deal with, essentially, they were willing to divest of a very heavy engineer platoon of a 56-pack engineer platoon, which allowed us to maintain horizontal engineer capacity, and still gain an infantry unit. And so anyway, that idea has gone forward. We don't, it's up to, at the end of the day, it's up to National Guard Bureau to determine if they're going to authorize the states of Alaska and Wyoming to do that. And we still wait. Those were submitted at the end of June, and so it's been a couple months now. We haven't heard back, but certainly an opportunity for us, and certainly I think something that will update the force based on what the demographics in Wyoming look like for the type of missions that people in Wyoming would want to enlist in the National Guard for. The other opportunity we have is an internal change, and we've often looked at and thought about our troop command. Our troop command has been a battalion level command for decades, and certainly that unit's large, it's diverse, it has units with multiple disciplines, all the way from aviation to infantry to the band, engineers. So one of the things we looked at is there a way to take two commands at the RTI, which is a fairly small unit with a very focused, important but very focused mission, is there a way to nest the RTI up under troop command, but then make troop command a brigade? And so we will be moving forward with that. We've worked the eaches, we've analyzed this in detail. It's been staffed over the last year, and we're ready to move forward. And we intend to start transitioning that direction here over this next year, with an implementation date of actually making some transition on the ground officially of 1 October 2021. There's probably a lot of questions around what that looks like and about how pieces and parts are going to move, and we've got some answers now. We haven't got all the answers yet, but for the most part we know what that thing looks like, and essentially the full-time staff, even though we'll move to a brigade and a battalion headquarters, as well as another battalion headquarters in the RTI. The full-time staffing will still look, the stuff I looked at this morning, actually it'll look identical to what it does now. But we've got some more analysis to do for what the two staffs are going to look like and how the entire unit is going to be arranged and structured. But again, I think a modernizing type of an opportunity for us, and I think something that has got a lot of positives, all the way from functionality to leadership opportunity, leadership development, and I think it's going to be a good thing for the organization. I'm going to ask the Sergeant Major to talk about a couple of things, and then I'll come back and close it out. So Sergeant Major, if you want to talk about our new Soldier Support Organization and ACFT.
Hey, good morning, Wyoming Military Department. First, I just want to talk about a little bit about the new Soldier Support Organization that we have. So for the Army, it's the Family and Soldier Support Center. They have an array of programs, some of the same programs that were under the S1st, anywhere from chaplain services, suicide prevention, and financial counseling to resiliency. So if there's any soldiers or senior leaders out there that need any of those programs, just make sure you're talking to your chain of command and you get with them and get pointed in the right direction. So the Army Combat Fitness Test. So Headquarters DA XORD 219-18, Frago 10 just came out June of 20. That's the most current update for the ACFT. 1 October of 20, the Army Combat Fitness Test will replace the Army Physical Fitness Test. At the end of this month, the Army Physical Fitness Test will no longer be given. There is a couple caveats to that. If a soldier is flagged currently for APFT and needs to go in front of a promotion board or re-enlist, he can get authorization from his commander or battalion commander to go ahead and take that APFT for a record. So really, that's some of the really the big change. And then to the 6 events, the plank is going to be a temporary substitute for the leg tuck. If a soldier can't complete one leg tuck, he can drop down and do a plank for 2 minutes. It's a pass or go or pass or fail event, and you get 60 points if you pass that. So really, that's the 2 big takeaways from the current ACFT update. Just to let you know what's going on in the state with the ACFT. So currently, right now, we got 133 ACFT lanes in the state. All of the lanes have been distributed throughout the state. We currently have 32 sets at Camp Guernsey, so when units go to AT, they complete their annual ACFT there at Camp Guernsey. There's 32 sets to do that. The pull-up bars weren't part of the original fielding from NGB. What we've done through the state, through our budget, we've purchased those pull-up bars. We currently have 32 sets, so we have 32 complete sets at Camp Guernsey. We got 60 more pull-up bars on order, and we will continue to order those and complete the 133 sets as we go forward into 21. So before I pass it back over to General Nesvik, there's a couple things I just want to say, especially to the recruiters. You know, those guys have done a tremendous job this last year in recruiting. But it's not only the recruiters, it's all the support in recruiting. It's those soldiers that they have on ADOS. They're spending 6-7 hours driving to MEPS to make sure that these applicants get processed through at MEPS. And it's all the support staff that they have down here at Cheyenne to help them complete their mission. So it's one team, one fight. You know, I can't thank those guys enough for what they have done so far this year. And also out to the units, you know, like General Nesvik said, retention is a big part. You know, we got to retain our soldiers as we get them in from day one. We need to start retaining them. So the units have done a great job this year. I look forward to TY21. You know, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a challenging year on the retention side of the house. So I think we still got a lot of work to do. We got a new retention team that's coming on board, headed up by Lieutenant Martin. So we look forward to getting that in place and getting that rolling. And as General Nesvik said, you know, soldiers want to come to drill and they want to train hard. And we as senior leaders need to make sure that we're doing exactly that. We have all the training plans in place to make sure when our soldiers come to drill that they got good training and they're training hard and we're sending them home tired. So last thing I want to say is, hey, I can't thank each and every one of you for what you do. You know, soldiers are the most important asset we have in the Army. We couldn't do any of these missions that we do without them. So again, I thank you for what you do.
Hey, so speaking of training, that's a great intro into what I wanted to talk about next and about all the things we've got going on this next year. I've got a list here that I wanted to read off that will illustrate how I think our commanders have really taken seriously the need to go out and train and do tough, realistic training that our soldiers are going to be able to be able to perform their missions with. So here's just June next year. Camp Dodge, Camp Ripley, Hawaii potentially, Camp Shelby, Delaware for an IRT project for a medical command, and Western Strike. And following that, not long after that, is Camp Atterbury. A lot of moving parts. Next year is going to be a busy year for training, but that's good. That's what we've asked folks to do. That's what we've asked our commanders and senior enlisted leaders to do, is to go out and find those kind of opportunities. I do want to take my hat off to the G3 and the chief, who have done a great job of helping facilitate that and resource that for our units. But I'm excited about what that all looks like. Last thing that I wanted to talk about was our Governor's Day this next year. Some of you may remember a few years ago we did a Governor's Day up in Guernsey for the Army. We did one on an opposite year for the Air. We're looking at doing that next August. bringing units, basically all the Army units, representatives and all of the Army units to Camp Guernsey, have an opportunity to recognize our Commander-in-Chief, who has a tremendous amount of support for all of us in the Wyoming Military Department, as well as all of the armed forces. And it's also, it's pretty historical. It's really cool. I didn't really think about this until I looked at some of those old pictures of when we had big formations of Army Guardsmen up at Pole Mountain 80 years ago. And you know what, those are pretty cool to go back and look at. And the one that we did here just a handful of years ago, I believe that was probably 16, if I remember right. That's a pretty darn cool mark in the history books for what our formation looked like, and many of us were a part of that. So we'll be doing that again. We're also going to look for some opportunities to get the governor out in the field to see soldiers training and all of the different units that we have in the Army Guard. And then with that, again, we'll be glad to answer some questions here at the end. I want to emphasize too, and just give a plug for what Sergeant Major just talked about. I mean, everything we do, all these achievements, all the great training that we accomplish on an annual basis happens because of great soldiers and great leaders. And I thank all of you for what you do each and every day to execute all of the missions, but also you have a different role that's not really lined out in any books anywhere. You all have a role as leaders in your community. If you serve in any role in the Wyoming National Guard, Army or Air, people know that. And they look at you to see what right looks like. They look at you to see what right looks like when we're dealing with COVID. They look at you to see what right looks like when they watch TV and they see all of this unrest and this divisiveness across our country. They look to you to say, well, that's the way we're supposed to act. That's a soldier or an airman, and look at that. That's what right looks like. So thank you for what you do. I'll turn it over to General Alcar.
Hey, good morning. First of all, let me start by saying thank you. You know, on Thursday night I went to bed, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know Friday was September 11th. Today is September 13th. You know, 19 years ago, each of our lives were affected. 3,000 of our fellow citizens were killed. And just let me say thank you for your continued service, because over the course of the 19 years, you've made a decision to either, number one, continue to serve, to re-enlist, or just to enlist. And from me to you, let me just say thank you, because I come to work every day, and it's an honor to drill with you. It's an honor to work with you every day. So let me talk about the S-First transition. General Porter has 3 lines of effort: lethality, responsiveness, and partnerships. And most of my focus is on responsiveness and partnerships. And so as we looked at the soldier, family, employer, readiness support team, and how it delivers their product to airmen and soldiers, we realized that it was not really streamlined. If you did a critical path, you realize that there was a bump in that process. Previously to 1 August, they were aligned under the J1 and the HRO, but they only owned about 3 of those resources. All the other resources were owned by the services, either the Army or the Air. So as the team in General Porter looked at it, they realized that, hey, if you own the resource, it's going to be a more deliberate response to the soldier, the airman, and to their dependents. And so what as a team and what General Porter decided to do was those services are now aligned right under the commanders. So on the Army side, as Sergeant Major Pafford said, on the Army side, those services are aligned under General Nesvik, and those folks on a day-to-day report to Colonel Nazardine, the Chief of Staff. On the Air side, those functions are aligned under Colonel Lyman, and they report directly to Colonel Dibert as a wing commander. Now, S-First really touched on about 5 services, 5 functions. They looked at the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional, and the families. All those services are still there. It's just a more deliberate response, a more deliberate delivery of the product. Now, there are 3 functions that will stay under the J1 because they're really DOD contracts. They overlap in both to the Army and the Air. The ESGR, the financial counselor, and military one source. They are a DOD function. And so those will still stay in the J1 and the HRO. but not one product has been, or one function has gone away. We firmly believe that as we look at it, the delivery will be more streamlined and more deliberate and a benefit to the soldiers and the airmen. COVID-19, we still have 2 CST members. The CST is going through their external evaluation through Army North. You know, they did some of it in August, and they'll finish up this last week in September. Through about the middle of July, we had 2 members of the CST that reported to the State Health Lab every day. And then the State Health Lab received some additional resources, and just like any other training unit, you know, if you do something every day for about 90 days, you get better and more efficient. And the State Health Lab absolutely did. And so, you know, we negotiated with those folks to see if we could go on a part-time basis. And so our 2 folks still report there a day, sometimes 2 days a week, depending on the State Health Lab schedule. And that's a pretty steady state. And I think we'll keep that response for some time. And remember, I've said a couple different times, we were part of the COVID interagency group down at the state working for the Secretary of State. We had about 13 airmen and soldiers. It was a great experience, and I tell you, we left there being better planners and better strategic thinkers. Well, the product of that was the state COVID response plan. And so we still have 2 members of the Joint Staff that still work with the governor's policy folks to help monitor and do the metrics. And that's really where we're at in the COVID-19 response. And if you want to really see how outside the box thinking helps, we were able to open up Youth Challenge and start that class in July. Started with 91 young kids ages 16 to 18. And I tell you, it's tough. Those kids wear their masks every day, but they do it. And so when both Colonel Lyman and General Nesvik talk about readiness, we got to work through wearing a mask, go to Youth Challenge sometime. They do it, and they're executing the mission. And it's tough. These are 16 to 18-year-olds who wear a mask every day, but they're there. And they're overcoming that challenge. But it's a great example of innovation and creativity to meet those challenges. To open up Youth Challenge, it was about a 19-page document that the state health officer had to approve. But it's happening. And so I appreciate those folks for doing that. You know, our partner in Tunisia, you know, they're still our partner. You know, we didn't conduct any events the last 2 quarters of this year, except for this event. We're doing an event. We have about 10 members of the Tunisian Air Force that arrive tonight at DIA, about 2,000, and they're going to be here for 2 weeks. This is an awesome event. You know, there are pilots, there's doctors, and there's maintenance guys, both rotary and fixed wing. And let me just say thanks to both the wing and to members out of the flight facility and to their support staffs. This is a great event. You can't bring 10 folks over and not deliver a good product. It's a familiarization event. And I tell you, it takes up a lot of time and a lot of resources. But it's important. When General Porter talks about competition, our relationship with Tunisia is absolutely a part of that. And so let me say thanks to both services for your support for this event. Kicks off tonight, and of course they'll be here for about 2 weeks. But that partnership continues strong. You know, we've had to push the rest of our first quarter events in 21 to second quarter, and we'll still work through this COVID and figure out ways to do that. But it's still a great partnership. And not only, I firmly believe that that program doesn't only improve and increase the readiness of our Tunisian partners, but someone would have to be far-fetched to tell me that when an airman or a soldier goes to Tunisia, or they work with a Tunisian counterpart here, that they don't get better, whether technically or professionally. That makes us better. That hits General Porter's #1 line of effort, lethality. But it's through that partnership that we get better. When we talk about counter drug, we expect about the same amount of budget. We don't expect much of a decrease. We've got 6 analysts. We'd like to get a couple more areas where we've got some gaps. We're going to ask for some more money. Don't know if we'll get it or not, but that program is a great program. Steady State Sergeant Major Diane Smith runs the program for us, and those analysts are doing a great job. And they both come from the Army and the Air, and so I would ask if, as those job announcement comes out and those folks rotate out, to take a look at it. You know, it's a great job, and it's out of the norm. It's out of the norm what those folks do every day. Partnerships, we still develop great partnerships. We have a great partnership with the Department of Education. For the past year, we planned an event with them in August. And we had about, originally it was going to be about 60 educators who were going to live at Camp Guernsey for 3 days. They were going to rappel. They were going to do land navigation. They were going to do some physical fitness. But as COVID continued to develop, you know, those educators do a great job. And, you know, they had to figure out 2 or 3 different platforms of how to teach. And it just became too hard for them to do both. So we didn't cancel it. In the words of General Porter, it's postponed. So we'll do it next year. But it's going to be a great event, and they're great partners. And let me tell you about another partner we have, the folks at the State Fair. And let me tell you how that partnership developed. It developed because of one soldier who in his community volunteered to serve on the State Fair Board. And this is the second year that we deliberately planned a recruiting event. Up until then, Sergeant First Class Douglas Fenton, now Master Sergeant Douglas Fenton, just did it himself. The return on investment, we had 28 leads between both services over a period of 3 or 4 days. But that's a true partnership now. Now, I haven't learned how to judge, you know, goats or cows or anything like that, nor will I ever do that. But I tell you, if you want to look at some great kids, you should look at the FHA program. You should look at those programs with those rural kids. I tell you, they're quality folks. So they're a great partner. Northcom, we've got some great training events planned. We'll publish those. We're developing those right now. But they're a great partner. Let me talk about Joint Staff 21. As I met with General Hughes and General Nesvik, you know, when we pull the Joint Staff, there's not a different document for the Joint Staff. We pull them from the Air and the Army. And General Hughes, you know, the Air headquarters isn't very big. And so that's a pretty big bill for them. And so, you know, making sure how do we improve the line of effort, responsiveness, we went to work. And so we made a presentation to the TAG, and we said, hey, boss, here's the deal. We'll do 4 exercises a year. And we're going to have a core staff where the full-time members of the Joint Staff must be and will be compatible. They'll be here. There's about 10 folks that'll be here full-time and on the drill weekend. We're not going to lose any functionality. But what I do think is that those high-speed airmen that are on the Joint Staff, I think they could go to General Hughes' staff 2 months out of every quarter, and they could help the air staff out. And then on that 3rd month of each quarter, those same people come back and they work, and we do an exercise. We presented it to the boss, and he said, yep, execute. So I think that'll increase the readiness of the Air Guard headquarters and help out Colonel Hughes in that manning. On the Army side, General Nesvik said, yep, that makes absolute sense. In the interim, their Joint Force headquarters their functions have changed a little bit, so those Joint Staff Army guys, they're going to stay with us. But we will be more responsive, and at the same time, still support both services. Vigilant Guard, and this is my last item to discuss, is a great exercise. It's a culminating event. Because of our partnership with WOES, it's going to be driven by Director Lynn Budd, the Director of Office of Homeland Security, and General Porter. It's 2023, and if you ask what the Joint Staff, what's on my mind, that's what we're focused on. Each drill. It's going to be a power outage event, and when we talk about partnerships, it'll not only be with the Wyoming Military Department, both the Air and the Army, but it'll be with our civilian partners. And so, if you ask somebody on the Joint Staff what's our focus, it's Vigilant Guard. And with that, sir, any questions for me? All right, sir, I'll turn it back over to General Porter.
Cool, thanks. Hey, listen, just wanted to to wrap up with a couple things. I've been, we got you here for an hour and 15 minutes so far, a little further than I wanted. Let's go back to the slide on payroll, if we could. One more. One more. I'll do it. Okay, so I think everybody got the notice from DFAS about this intent to not take Social Security taxes from everybody for this first from September through December. So that's about 6% that normally comes out. If you're looking at an E6 with 15, 20 years, that's about $250 a month that you're going to keep in your check. The caveat here is they're going to recoup that money back. The feds are going to recoup that money back starting in January. So where you would save $250 in your check in September, I think the plan is to take $500 in January. So that has that's a significant event. And so we want all the soldiers and airmen to really understand what's going on there, that you're going to get a little bit more in the check in the first quarter of 21, but it's coming out. And so please take steps to alleviate that bump. We don't know yet if the state folks are going to have to go through this or not. There hasn't been a decision yet. So we gotta work through that still. But so our state employees, we don't know. But everybody else is gonna feel this. So I just want to make sure everybody's tracking. We certainly have some resources, Mr. Glenn Lyons, on the financial side of things. I think it's just put it in a savings account, folks, and be able to be able to pay it back as we go forward. But we don't have a choice. That's the decision that was made, but that's the results that are going to come happen out to that. So, any questions on this before I kind of wrap it up or get to discussions? Everybody's stunned and okay. All right, let's go to real quick, and then we'll turn it over to questions. Hey, just to close with a couple of things. The leadership team brought it up in terms of Suicide Prevention Month this month in September. And I will tell you, one of the most insidious things COVID did to us was sever our connections with our soldiers and airmen and families and the people we love. That's had the most impact to us. And I will tell you, over this last 8 months, I didn't wake up every day in a good place mentally. I was experiencing the same frustrations I think everybody else is. And I tell you, I don't have real problems like some of our soldiers and airmen. I mean, I'm fortunate in that event that I've been married to my wife for 31 years, and she's been very supportive. And we've got soldiers and airmen out there that are going through some relationship problems, that have some financial issues, and it can look pretty dark out there. And it's okay to be a little depressed and a little worried, as long as we don't get to that spiral, to that bad place where somebody has an ideation. And I think it's just incumbent upon all of us again to reach out, to make sure that we're establishing those connections again, even more so than what we normally do. We've done a really good job as a force, but I think it's once a reminder to us all, we still got to continue. And if our soldiers and airmen just can't get to that place where they reach out, we got to reach down and grab them and make sure that we're touching them and that they're doing all right. It's okay to feel a little worried, depressed, nervous. It's okay. It's understandable, but don't let it get to a bad place. And talk, share. We have all kinds of folks willing to help. All of us are certainly willing to help one another. So let's not leave that. Okay, let's talk questions. We got any questions? I don't know how you want to handle that, Rusty, but.
Sir, we had a few questions submitted prior to the town hall this morning. I'll go ahead and start with those, and then if somebody in the audience here has a question, feel free to come back and use the microphone to answer that so our viewing audience has the opportunity to hear the question. The first one is in relation to supporting wildfires. We know that they've been utilized in California, both Air and Army, sir, but who decides how those firefighting assets are utilized and deployed and allocated throughout the country?
Ooh, Russ, are we talking like MAF's piece of that?
Yes, sir.
I'll let Sly talk about the AEG and how that works.
Okay, that's a great question, and if I get it wrong, I've got 3 other wise colonels in the audience that can help me. So, our MAFS units work directly for the Forest Service, and they coordinate that whole effort through NIFC, which stands for the National Interagency Fire Center.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that fire center, they will deploy assets, and due to some laws, one of them being the Economy Act, the Forest Service cannot use military assets on a fire until all the civilian assets are depleted. So all the civilian tankers have to be basically depleted, and then they will call in, they'll put in what's called an RFA, request for assistance, and that's where our MAFS units get deployed. And where they go is all based on the Forest Service and that NIFC, and they coordinate depending on the biggest loss of life, loss of structure, so that's what they're looking at. There's some fires, like if you live in Colorado, the Cameron Pass fire, that thing was just raging and burning out of control, but really it wasn't affecting any structures that I know of, any structures or civilian life. So therefore, they don't deploy our assets on that. But I will tell you that it's really important for our MAFS crews because we get training on actual fires, and to develop co-pilots and pilots, they have to fight actual fires to get that experience, because you just can't simulate flying on an actual fire until you actually do it. So it's really important for us, if we don't get activated after a period of time, that we can't get our training and we can't stay proficient on fire. So that was a great question.
Thank you, sir.
I will say that we also just sent, we just sent the UH-60 out there, and that really came from the adjutant general from California got on the net and said, hey, listen, brothers and sister tags out there, I need your help. I need some Type 1 aircraft to come help fight these fires. And so that's what started that. That happened kind of fortunate for Wyoming, because we just had that cold front come through and dumped a lot of snow. So that gave us enough capacity, I think, where we could still keep assets in the state in case something happened, but we felt pretty comfortable about letting one go help those folks out. So that's how that one came about. It was an EMAC request from California. Go ahead, Rusty. What's the next one?
Yes, sir. And this may sit squarely with the senior enlisted leaders. Are military schools transitioning back to in-person format from the current virtual format, specifically schools like BLC, ALC, ALS, and NCOA?
So I can tell you on the Army side, so the basic leader course, that is currently the only course that is conducting DL classes through the end of the year. Coming 1 October, we're going to start sending soldiers back to BLC. ALC, SLC, MLC, and the Sergeant Major's course. Part of those courses are DL, and there is a part that is resident, but those courses are currently doing both DL and resident phases this time on the Army side.
The Air Force courses like the PME, ALS, those are all controlled locally by the bases, so each school may have different rules. Everybody who has a TLN will get those rules. They'll be told what they need to do to attend. A lot of them, some of them have gone virtual, but some of them are going in residence with restriction. As far as the tech schools and stuff, that's another situation that's based wherever that tech school is located. The local commander decides how that works and how they move in and out to go to school. They've had to make some adjustments, get people there, slowed down some things, but they seem to be getting people through schools. We do foresee some backlog coming, but so far I haven't heard anything too great. But that's how we're doing all the schools for that. I will put a plug in real quick for the distance learning courses for both the NCOA and ALS has changed greatly. So if you're waiting for a school date, the new courses are much better than the old ones. So if you want to go ahead and take care of that, I would recommend using a distance learning course.
Thanks, Chief. Just hold on to it, I think, until. What else, Rusty?
Yes, sir. We've already discussed the Social Security tax deferment, but we had a question, sir, about how it possibly affects M-Day soldiers and traditional airmen more, especially those who've been on long-term orders but won't be in the coming year. That to say they'll have a higher withheld rate, and then their drill check is where it'll be drawn from, and there could be a disparity.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know we kind of came to the epiphany that, anybody that's up on orders through the 31st of December that's getting paid, when we turn around and they start garnering, returning that after that, if they're not on orders, that's a significant event. That's going to be an issue that we got to make sure that people are tracking. I don't know that I've put enough brain sweat into that particular nuance that you did there, Rusty. So we're going to take that down and work that one, because I wasn't tracking that. Appreciate the question. That's a good one.
Yes, sir. And next we have from Major Casey Henry of the Field Artillery Brigade for Colonel Lyman and the air folks. How much more capable are the new upgraded C-130s of hauling HIMARS loaded with reduced range practice rockets? Will they be able to land and take off from the tack strip at Guernsey loaded with a HIMARS?
Well, thanks, Major Henry, for that very in-depth and technical question. So I'm going to flag out to my two elder colonels that are also aviators in the room, and I will say, repeat that question one more time, and then I'll answer. I think it's a two-part.
Yes, sir. Capability of the upgraded C-130s that you mentioned with the H-3 upgrades, do they still have the ability to take the HIMARS and take off and land from a tack strip?
Well, it depends. I think it would depend on the tack strip. So if he's talking about our tack strip, so yes, we do have increased capability with the modernized C-130. So better fuel efficiency, better takeoff performance, and longer extended range. So that all of that is a factor. Now, to land in our tack strip, I think we can still land, but I don't know if we could. Yeah, it's a maybe on the takeoff. So our tack strip has a high altitude or elevation, so that affects performance. And depending on the time of year and the temperature, that'll also affect performance. And depending on the weight of those practice rockets and all that stuff. So I think it would be probably very tight with the new airplane, but we'd have to crunch the numbers. But it would definitely be more capable than before. So a better opportunity to do that. And that would be for the J as well. And so the J also has a couple extra pallet positions, so we can haul more, and it'll haul a little bit more weight. But I just don't know if we would love to do it if we can. So if that answers your question.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And there's been some discussion on Facebook back and forth about the weight. And so Colonel Burton had asked how much they weighed. Major Henry came back saying that they weigh 35,800 pounds. And sir, also I thought everyone when we said HIMARS had to say fire mission if you were in the brigade. Is that correct? And then additional information on C-130Js, sir. So if that transition happens and the Air Guard does get Js, you explained a little bit about what that would mean, but what happens if the unit doesn't get J models? Are there going to be future rounds of selection? And is it the sense that the entire Air National Guard will be moving to the J model?
Okay, and so now we're kind of getting into the realm of speculation and budget, and with, as the country we've seen, we've already talked about what General Braun is saying about making tough decisions about future decisions on the C-130. So if we don't make the first round, right now that's 3 squadrons. Right now that's the initial buy was for 3 squadrons. And there has been other talk about reducing the overall number of tails in the C-130s in the Mobility Air Force, the MAF. So I would say yes, there's a potential of getting more, but that's going to be years down the road. And really, if General Porter, you want to answer more, or Colonel Walrath, what do you think? I mean,
yeah, I would just tell you that
it's tough, yeah.
Active component have gone all to Js, and there's at least 18 wings in the National Guard that are at C-130s. I don't see them all going to Js. That's given what I'm seeing right now. I don't see that all going to Js. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean they get modernized? Does that mean that some of them go away? Does that mean what does that mean? We're still working through that right now. I suspect it'll be a little bit of both. That we'll get a few more Js wings converted. We'll probably do some modernization, and then Cargo X, the next C-130J after that, is what's going to be on the horizon. How long can we extend the airframe? That's the big question. But I don't think everybody's going to get Js. I think there's going to be a decision at some point that they're going to halt the J, and either we're going to go to Cargo X or there's going to be another decision made.
In general, those are the questions that we received in advance or while we've been streaming live. And so I'd also open up to anyone here in the audience before we have some closing remarks from you, sir.
Yeah, Chief Moore just gave me a heads up on this Social Security that President Trump had put out some information that maybe the military wouldn't have to pay back. And I think there's still some question about the authorities that occur with that. So I would tell you right now, please plan on, take steps to pay it back. And as the situation develops, we'll keep you informed as that goes. If that, we'll see where that goes. How about some questions in here, folks? Anybody got anything? How about our hostages? Anything for you guys? No hostages? All right. Anything else, guys? Okay. Let me wrap it up then. You've hung this longer than you should have to on a Sunday morning. I appreciate it. I will just tell you, as I look at the force writ large, you've heard me say I don't expect perfection, but I expect improvement. And that's what I tend to see out there. If we look at strength on both sides, both services is improving. Readiness, despite all the stuff with COVID, readiness is coming back up. Our soldiers and airmen are more fit, they're more ready, they're more competent than they've ever been. As I have discussions throughout the organization, when I go talk to them, all I see in the eyes of our soldiers and airmen employees is passion and in hope and a willingness to get after the tough problems. I mean, if I look at as a whole of what's going on out there, I cannot but fail to be impressed with the kind of people that we have, the kind of passions, the kind of strengths that we have in this department. It's going to be just like every year. Every year we go through, there's a challenge, there's friction, those things are coming. But we deal with it. You deal with it so well. I mean, you just get the mission done and you continue to drive on. I will tell you we're going to have less resources, but I will not tell you we're going to do more with less. That's not my intent. We're going to have to do something we really suck at as a military department, and that is figuring out what we're not going to do because we just simply can't do it. And that's going to take a lot of our work and a lot of our effort because we just won't have the ability to do it. And those are the tough decisions that we don't like making because we like to do everything. We don't want to let anybody down. We don't want to let our neighbors down. But at some point, the resources are going to dictate what we're capable of. I will just tell you, it's a privilege to serve with each and every one of you every day. You really are the best that the state of Wyoming and America brings to us. I couldn't be prouder of all of you. So thanks for taking the time and spending it with us this week or this morning. If you have any input for us or any of the leadership team over here, please don't hesitate to come out. That's our business is to make sure that we're doing the right things, and we want to get better every time, and the best ideas come from you guys out there. So thanks very much. Remember, bless our families, bless the veterans, and bless all of you that serve the Sword and Shield. Cool. Have a good day.